Hi, I'm Mick Cox from Brisbane, Australia, and I'd like to tell you today about Tesla and Einstein's involvement in the Philadelphia experiment. You see, what happened was, to state the obvious that everyone knows, Tesla had quite a few items hidden away or kept safe in the safe in his motel room. But what we didn't know is that, a lot of people don't know, is that there was a reason for Tesla to keep those special experiments locked away in his safe. Not so that people wouldn't steal them, it was so that people wouldn't run those experiments. To tell you another thing that maybe some people do know, is that Tesla studied the Indian gurus in their books, the books that the Indian gurus wrote about energy. And what a lot of people don't realise, and you don't realise it unless you're a medium yourself, is that Tesla was a medium. Tesla studied the gurus, and therefore he channeled the gurus, and the concept of their energy that he learnt, he applied to his experiments. He expanded on the content of the books from the Indian gurus. So in those days of Tesla, one thing that you don't realise, and I most certainly realise now because I'm a medium, and all of the social effects, let's put it lightly, surrounding being a medium, not just being ostracised, but some people can get physical about you being a medium. Some people can get spiritual about you being a medium. I'm forever being told by Christians that I'm of the devil because I'm a medium. That totally astounds me. Christians talk about the power of God and etc., and they talk about another power that's almost as equal as God as the devil, and they accuse me directly of being the devil. Whew. Geez, I mean, even if it was bad, I'd like to be that powerful. But anyhow, let's get back to the subject. And the subject is that Tesla was a medium. It wasn't in any way accepted in those days. In those days, it was vehemently opposed of everyone being a medium. Look, I'll tell you right now, while we're on that subject of being a medium, I'm going to tell you just briefly that I've never read it, but people have told me that the Bible says that Jesus went to the East. Well, in the East were the Indian gurus. You can't imagine that some fellow in the Roman days could ever return from the East after having been taught about energy and how to heal from the Indian gurus. You can't imagine that the Romans would ever accept anyone like that. And I'll tell you, I'll state the obvious that a lot of Christians don't know about that. But they don't realise what was in the East. They just simply say that he went to the East. So, jumping the subject again, wasn't I? But let's get back to it. Tesla, he was a medium, and he had lots and lots of experiments that were dangerous in his safe in the motel room. He died with $1,750 to his name, is what I heard. And let me tell you that that when he died, 3 months after he died, they ran the Philadelphia experiment. And of course the government went in there, confiscated his safe, confiscated everything in his safe. It wouldn't have looked good them breaking the safe in his room, so they confiscated it and took away everything, all of his furniture. And so when they broke into the safe, they asked Einstein. Einstein was the most incredible scientist in that time. Well, let's say recognised scientist. And so they said, "Hey, Albert, which one of these experiments would you like to run yourself?" And so my guess is that the Philadelphia experiment had warning written all over it. It's dangerous and etc. So Einstein, maybe on his ego trip, said, "I'll run this experiment." And so the Philadelphia experiment, also the experiment that turned out to be the Philadelphia experiment, talked about building a ship or some sort of vessel that was laden with DC generators and electromagnets. DC generator because a DC is what it takes to create an electromagnet. So what happened was, I believe that they chose 200 of the most special forces men to build that ship, and they chose those same 200 men to run the experiment on board the ship. Now, a little bit of evidence that shows us that it was 200 of the best men is in the fact that today, when we have a submarine, I've been told time and time again by submariners that there's 52 men that it takes 52 men to run a submarine, and each one of those 52 men know each other's job. So that in the example of battle, there's problems, any man can be assigned to a man's position if they were knocked out, so to speak. So the same thing happened with the Philadelphia experiment. I'm talking about 200 special forces men, specially trained men, men that are already in the knowledge, and of course they wouldn't have told their families. They wouldn't have been allowed to tell their families that they were building the Philadelphia experiment, or the experiment that they were running in Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia was the name of the ship. I can't remember the semantics of the Philadelphia experiment. It's been quite a few years since I've watched the video, but I can tell you that this diagram is on the front of my book. It shows our sun with 4 lines spanning from it, and those lines rotate across 15 billion kilometres of our solar system. And I can tell you that when they built the ship, they flicked the switch on when one of these lines were rolling past, and the ship disappeared. So what else I can tell you is that the ship apparently reappeared somewhere else a long way away, and I think it was for like 30 seconds or 30 minutes or something like that, and then the ship disappeared again. Maybe they switched it off, and maybe they switched it back on again. So that the ship disappeared, it reappeared for 30 seconds or so, and then disappeared again. And so when it reappeared, the 200 men, became a part of the ship. Some men were waist deep in the decks. Some men's arms were a part of the metallurgy of the ship, and all sorts of other configurations, hands and etc. And I think there was only half a dozen survivors. So what I'm going to tell you is that the Philadelphia experiment was run by an unknown scientist, and that scientist, of course, was Einstein. He was the greatest known scientist at the time. Tesla was forever being shunned away because most probably that he didn't He didn't say it. He obviously didn't say it. He knew better than to say it, but they knew that he was studying the Indian gurus. They knew that he was channeling information, because there were other people that channeled information. So, let me say something just briefly there, that 2,000 years ago, there was an awful lot of people who were being crucified. Not just that one dude that got crucified. I mean, there was thousands of people being crucified. And what it was they were being crucified by the government, by the soldiers, which was the Romans, and there was another religion that was in power at that time, and they would have been a part of the government. And so that other religion, the Judeans or whatever they were, they stood around and watched people get crucified. Well, as we have evolved spiritually and as we have evolved as humans over the last 2,000 years, suddenly a new gift, let's call it, I call it an ability, has arisen. In the last 200 years, along come mediums, and the spiritualism, the religion. It became a religion. And these people that became spiritualists were into spiritualism, communication with the afterlife. They were actually Christians they were godly based. They were Christians who became spiritualists, and were into spiritualism. They founded the spiritualist church. And let me tell you, in the last 200 years, that's not gone well. What happened was, let me tell you, that Einstein ran the Philadelphia experiment as an unknown, unlisted scientist. He totally, just about totally annihilated 200 men, but also 200 families that were involved in the experiment. And if they were really special forces men, then they meant something in their families as well. They were a very special part of their families. Maybe they were looked upon as an elder in a clan or in the family, etc. And when they were lost, when they died in that experiment, it wouldn't have been too good for Einstein as the anonymous scientist. Some of them would have been told through the survivors of the experiment what happened, and that Einstein was a part of, was running that experiment. And they would have been told that Tesla said, "Don't go near this experiment, it's extremely dangerous." So those families would have been upset, to say the least. So let's look what happened. As I said, the Philadelphia experiment was run by an unknown scientist, which was, of course, Einstein. 3 months after Tesla died, 200 Special Forces men were killed, and 200 Special Forces families were upset. And so then what happened to Einstein? Let's look at him. Let's look at Einstein today, because it started for me with, after being told about the Philadelphia experiment, it was told to me by Tesla or Einstein. They said to me, "Whereabouts is the statue of Einstein?" And so I searched and came back with zilch. There is not any statue for Einstein, the greatest scientist, well, the greatest known scientist that ever lived. No statue. So where is the Einstein car that they just use his name, or etc.? His name, after the Philadelphia experiment, wasn't just mud. I mean, mud can wash off, but but Einstein's name after the Philadelphia experiment, most certainly with the government who had to pay out compensation, if they did, Einstein's name would have been tar or bitumen. You know, that doesn't wash off easily. And so where is the university named after Einstein? Where is the university award in Einstein's name? You know, you've proven to excel in science, in this area of science where Einstein worked, and so we're going to award you the Einstein Award for that science approach, experiment, development. It doesn't exist. Einstein was, they totally, absolutely, totally wiped their hands of Einstein. And let me tell you that it didn't go down well with Einstein either. I'll tell you some more things about Einstein later, but let me tell you that that there's no park, there's no building named after Einstein, there's no road, there's nothing, absolutely nothing named after Einstein. There isn't even an Einstein tour in Germany that takes you to his home where he was born or lived. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And I'll tell you more about Einstein soon in another video, and I'll head it up with Einstein's life. I'll call it Einstein's life between the lines. That's what I'll call it. And let me also tell you that I've never read any book in my entire life. I wrote one, and it's got some incredible facts about those 4 lines that you see in the diagram that span from our sun. It's got about 100 different theories. They're theories right now. I couldn't express enough to you that you must look into my video on rainbows, Mick Cox's rainbows. I've renamed them as angel bows, and I'm extreme. And the reason is that I'm extremely dyslexic. I was gifted, and I gift on my gifts as a medium. Sometimes in a reading with clients, I can name 30 to 40 names in an hour, and as well as 20 or 30 personal messages, which brings the clients to absolute tears of joy to hear from them. Not once or twice or half a dozen times, nearly on a weekly basis. And I'm not bragging, I'm just trying to explain to you what real mediumship can be like.